Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to All Souls, part of the liberal faith tradition in Braintree, Massachusetts, which began in 1833. In our Unitarian Universalist community, we strive to create a welcoming and affirming space for all, recognizing and celebrating the inherent worth and dignity of every person. This commitment to diversity informs all aspects of our shared life, especially our worship services. We believe our services should be a space where every individual feels respected for their unique identity and experiences. We are committed to working together to build a truly inclusive and loving community where everyone belongs. So I'm sharing a little bit about myself and some service elements. My name is Joseph Maloney, and it is my pleasure to be your service associate this morning. My pronouns are he and him. I'm wearing a long sleeve gray button-down collared shirt, black jeans, glasses, and white hair. We project images and songworks on the wall behind me during the service. We can come to you with a microphone, or you can come to the front during our joys and concerns. Choir members use microphones so that those attending on Zoom can hear the music. Assistive listening devices are also available as you enter the sanctuary. These practices acknowledge and celebrate the beautiful diversity of individual needs, abilities, gender expression, and communication styles within our community. If you are visiting us for the first time and would like to learn more about All Souls, Unitarian Universalism, please fill out a connection card found in the chat or in the pews, and we'll be happy to follow up with you. Our services are live streamed on Zoom. If you would like to activate Zoom's closed caption feature during the service, click the CC icon at the bottom of the screen and select Live Transcript. After the service, our remote participants are invited to stay online for a virtual social hour, and participants in the building are invited to gather in the parish hall for refreshments. Now for our chalice lighting. We light a chalice this morning to remember some of the facts of life, and this is an excerpt from the Facts of Life by Patrick O. Tuma. That you were born and you will die. That you will sometimes love enough and sometimes not. That you will lie, if only to yourself. That you will get tired. That you will live. That you must be loved. That you will avoid questions most urgently in need of your attention. That life isn't fair. That life is sometimes good and sometimes better than good. That you will learn to live with regret. That you will learn to live with respect. That the structures that construct you may not be permanently constraining. That you will probably be okay. That you must accept change before you die, but you will die anyway. So you might as well live, and you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love. Please be seated for our chalice song.
Rise up, O flame, thy light glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Please join me in reading our congregational covenant. We covenant to create a caring, affirming, and inclusive community that invites us to become our best selves and to serve the wider community and the world. Now for our earth candle. We light this green candle to affirm our commitment to caring for the planet that is our home. Now I have a guest welcome and introduction. Phoebe Eckart-Lee serves as the Contract Assistant Minister at the First Parish in Lexington. Phoebe is an advocate for UU youth. In Lexington, Phoebe focuses on youth and family ministry. She co-authored a UU Youth Worship Handbook and was formed with circles of youth in the California redwood forests. She is from San Francisco and moved to the Boston area in 2020 to attend Harvard Divinity School. She lives in Medford with her spouse, and their sausage dog. We welcome Phoebe Eckart-Lee to the All Souls pulpit this morning.
Thanks, Joseph. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Phoebe Eckart-Lee. I am so excited to be here with you this morning. Thank you for having me. My bio that I sent to you is a little more youth-focused than I might normally go, but what I have to say to you today is about Unitarian Universalist youth. Unitarian Universalist youth are a part of my history. They're a part of the history of our shared denomination. And the UU teenagers are some of what brings me joy in these hard times these days. I have the privilege of working with some. Rather than more complex opening words, I wanted to share with you a couple of 15-year-old mementos to try and express my appreciation for the UU teenage culture and for the way that it called me and formed me into ministry. This is a very old now paper plate that my peers wrote kind things about me on while I was attending a UU event. We ran out of paper and they said, "A paper plate will do." This is a note. I don't know who this is from, but it says, "You will do awesome chaplaining. Good luck and have fun, smiley face." I don't know who wrote this note, but it's something that buoys me through my work today. And then this one, I found these in a brown paper bag that I have moved with me every time I move. I found this tiny scrap of paper and it says, "I believe in us." I believe in us. I like that too. So I invite you to come into this space of worship and try and find that youthful spark within you, because we're going to be talking about teenagers. The music, the hymns that we'll be singing today also, I chose because of their relevance to the UU youth community. Our opening hymn, which I'll invite you to join in singing in just a moment, was written for UU youth in the 1950s. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But would you please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, "We Would Be One."
Our hymn of love.
The theme of our service today is courageous joy. So our first reading this morning is Ode to Joy by Billy Collins. Ode to Joy. Friedrich Schiller called joy the spark of divinity, but she visits me on a regular basis, and it doesn't take much for her to appear. The salt next to the pepper by the stove, the garbage man ascending his station on the back of the moving garbage truck, or I'm just eating a banana in the car and listening to Buddy Guy. In other words, she seems down to earth, like a girl getting off of a bus with her suitcase, and no one's there to meet her. It's a little after 4 in the afternoon, one of the first warm days of spring. She sits on her suitcase to wait, and she slides on her sunglasses. How do I know she's listening to the birds? Here ends our reading.
Now it's time for our joys and concerns.
Please remain seated for our centering hymn, Find a Stillness.
Find the stillness, hold the stillness, let the stillness carry me.
I hadn't seen that image. Our second reading today is called Cantaloupe, and it's by a poet named Emily Holiday, who wrote this when she was a teenager. It's important to me to include some writing by actual teens if I'm going to talk about them today. This is a poem reflecting on her childhood, being raised Catholic and playing and finding joy. Every day, I wear my shiny red cowboy boots. Sometimes I even wear them when I stand on my table. I pretend I'm doing magic. Sometimes I perform tintimbulations. The problem is my soles get real sticky. No one cleans up their juice from their cantaloupe. I always clean up my own cantaloupe. In my house, there are lots of good bells for tintimbulations. Mom uses them to call us to the dinner table. When she rings the bells, I come running. My boots help me run really fast, almost like magic. Then I wash my hands because they're usually pretty sticky. I don't mind being sticky. It just means I've been playing hard in my boots. I know how long I've been playing. Tintimbulations come from our church every hour. During Sunday school, we snack on cantaloupe. And guess what? We don't even eat it at a table. We sit in a circle on the ground and talk about God and magic. I don't really believe in magic. I just like to eat that cantaloupe, while I admire my shiny red boots. I shine them every day so they won't be sticky. You know how I told you about how I perform tintimbulations? Well, Mom yells at me when she finds boot prints on her table. She says that food is the only thing that should be on the table. Here's the problem. Food makes it really sticky, especially cantaloupe. When I stand on the table, I pretend I'm God, using all of my magic. Too bad God doesn't have shiny red cowboy boots. He'd look pretty neat up in heaven, listening to the tintimbulations. I bet you don't even know what that word means, tintimbulations. I swear it's not some sort of wacky magic. It means the ringing of bells. Like on summer nights when it's hot and sticky, the bells don't ring and I don't know when to go to the table. And so instead I eat my cantaloupe at the playground, standing tall in my red boots. All you need are some boots and a little magic. Sometimes things get sticky, and that's when it's time to go home, stand on your table, listen to some tintimbulations, and eat some cantaloupe. Here ends our reading.
Each service, we have an opportunity to give thanks for the blessings we have received in our lives and in the life of our community. Our offering is a chance to give back in support of our work and outreach. You may submit your offering electronically by following the link in the chat, or you may mail it to All Souls Church at the address also provided in the chat. At this time, our morning offering will be given and received.
So I saw some dubious faces while I read that last poem. It's a little silly, I know, it's a little childish. But can you remember a time when you pretended to do magic or had a pair of cowboy boots you really loved? Can you remember being small and joyful? Show of hands. Yes, no, maybe so. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. This is from The Prophet, a book by Khalil Gibran. And there's something about that line that reaches into the marrow of faith. Life's longing for itself. Not our longing, not even God's longing, but life itself, wanting more life. That's what I want to talk about today. How young people, especially in Unitarian Universalist communities, embody that longing, and how they do so with joy, not necessarily a light surface happiness, but a courageous joy. The kind of joy that isn't found in comfort or ease, the joy that arises when we face challenges, experience hardships, and yet we choose to live with hope, connection, and purpose. It's an act of resistance, joy, a testament to the strength of the human spirit, joy that refuses to be overshadowed by despair. Joy that risks, joy that builds, joy that tells the truth and still dares to laugh. When I think about this kind of joy, I think about Unitarian Universalist youth conferences, or cons, weekend retreats in churches all over the country, full of ritual and glitter, where teenagers build sanctuaries out of fairy lights and sleeping bags. I think of worship circles where someone's first tears and someone else's deep laughter make the same kind of holy sound. I think of moments where I've watched youth lead with clarity and vulnerability and felt that awe arising in me like a tide. But those moments don't exist in a vacuum. They're part of something older, something deeper. And to really understand what courageous joy means for you youth, we have to look at the history they carry with them, even when they don't know it's there. A seminary colleague of mine, Carter Smith, the Reverend Carter Smith, in her work called Reinventing the Wheel, reminds us that there is a long living history of Unitarian Universalist youth leadership. But it's a history that many youth only hear about in fragments. They hear acronyms like LRY or YRUU tossed around in conversation, or maybe even passed down like lore, but they rarely get the full picture. And without that full picture, it's hard to know what you're a part of or what you're building on. Carter writes that the youth of today inherit echoes of institutions that once shaped entire generations, but often without the full story. I wonder, were any of you teenagers? Okay, I see a few nods, but mostly head shaking, so bear with me. This is a sketch of the larger story. I was told that I was one of the younger guest speakers you may have had, and so I thought it would be appropriate to tell the story of my people, the Unitarian Universalist teenagers. All right, so liberal religious youth, or LRY. There won't be a quiz, by the way. LRY was an organization of UU youth and young adults born in 1953 and disbanded in 1982. It was a bold and beautiful experiment in youth-led community. It was wild. It was radical. It was countercultural. And it was deeply shaped by the movements of the 60s and 70s. It was full of love and also a little bit full of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. LRY was known for its powerful worship, political activism, and strong sense of identity, which was separate from the adult denominations. It challenged the denomination in some wonderful ways and some really dangerous ways. My dad was in LRY in the 1970s in Texas, and he can really tell some stories. So then came Why Are You You? It's kind of a cute sentence. Why are you you? But also an acronym for the Young Religious Unitarian Universalists. This was from 1982 to 2008. This era brought more structure, more intentional collaboration with adult leaders, and a deepening of spiritual practices. We started using the vocabulary of youth empowerment, because youth were empowered to lead, to worship, and to be taken seriously as spiritual beings. And then after 2008, the national structure of youth programming ceased to exist. But youth didn't. The teenagers didn't just disappear. They kept gathering. And this is where I come into the story, so we kept showing up at conferences, in worship, in circles of trust and transformation, but only in some parts of the country. The story of youth continued, just it was less centralized and often less resourced. What I really want you to hear is that youth still found each other and helped building the faith that they needed. Carter Smith calls this cycle reinventing the wheel. And at first that might sound really inefficient, but I think it's something holy also, and frustrating. Because every time youth come together, they're not just repeating what came before, they're making it new. They're bringing fresh joy to an old faith. They're living life's longing again. And that longing, that impulse to connect, to lead, and to build something better, it shows up not just in their actions, but in the joy that they carry with them. So that brings us to joy. Because this history, this lineage, isn't just about structures and organizations. It's about joy, the kind of joy that springs up from messiness and says, we are still here. It says, I believe in us, on my little piece of scrap paper. Emily Holiday, in her poem Cantaloupe, writes of a small sacred act, the simple sweetness of cutting fruit for someone you love, of dancing on the table, of sharing joy in its most ordinary and intimate form. Youth are experts in that kind of meaning making. They create sacred space out of doodling, out of song circles and inside jokes. They make meaning out of all the small and the strange. They laugh in the margins. They draw poetry. They turn grief into ritual. They gather again and again, even when systems have failed them. I wonder if there's some wisdom for us in this current political moment in that. And that's risky. Because joy, especially youth joy, doesn't always look respectable. Maybe it's seen as frivolous, or worse, dangerous. We can say the same for many marginalized communities expressing joy in their own ways. Joy doesn't always follow the rules, and that can make people uncomfortable. Because courageous joy tells the truth. It makes demands. It doesn't always wait for permission. And so, especially in institutional spaces, youth joy is sometimes called dangerous or too much. But as Patrick Otuma reminds us in our first reading, The Facts of Life, life's not fair, but it's full of meaning. Joy will come, and it will surprise you. That surprising joy, that kind that slips in sideways and refuses to be ignored, it's at the heart of youth ministry. And nowhere is that clearer than in a moment from our own UU history. So let me take you back to 1953. I know you may have been there and I was not, but bear with me. In 1953, the adult denominations, Unitarian and Universalist, had been considering merging, but they hadn't acted on it. Meanwhile, the youth were not waiting. At a joint convention in New Hampshire, youth from both traditions came together and voted to merge their organizations. The American Unitarian Youth and the Universalist Youth Fellowship, which had both existed under various names since the 1890s. They formed Liberal Religious Youth, LRY. 8 full years before the adults would do the same. The youth are who led us to become this denomination. And I think that's a history we don't all know. And it wasn't just symbolic, it was visionary, it was prophetic. And to mark that moment, a Unitarian minister in his 20s, Reverend Samuel Anthony Wright, who was the director of the American Unitarian Youth, wrote a hymn. He called it, "We Would Be One." You just sang it. We just sang it. He wrote it not for the hymnal, but for the youth. And he set it to that soaring melody of Sibelius's Finlandia, a song of courage and hope. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. That line, written for youth by a youthful vision, has become one of our most beloved hymns. And it was more than poetry. This was covenant. Okay, that's great. The youth merged, Reverend Samuel wrote this song, but why do we need this story of courageous joy today? I mean, just look at the world around us. We are living in a time of deep division, environmental crises, and systemic injustice. It can feel like the weight of the world is bearing down on us, and yet in the midst of all this, we are somehow called to find joy. This is the joy that fuels activism, that keeps our spirits buoyed in the face of adversity, that reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. It's the joy of UU teenagers who stood together in 1953 to merge their vision for a better, more just world. And it's the joy we must embody today as we continue that work. Of course, that joy doesn't mean that everything was easy. The history of youth in Unitarian Universalism is full of heartbreak also. It's full of conferences that ended badly, programs that were underfunded, trust that was broken between youth and adults. I was certainly part of some of that. But the response wasn't silence. It was returning, repairing, and reinventing that wheel. Because this is how we live in covenant. Carter Smith, again, reminds us that covenant isn't about getting it right all the time. It's about returning. It's about the faithful work of promise making, promise breaking, and then promise remaking. Youth do this too. Sometimes I find more honestly than we adults. They fight, they leave, they come back, they try again. And in doing so, they model something essential for all of us. A way of living into beloved community even when it gets messy. Because joy and justice are bound together in covenant. They are the way we come back to one another, the way we hold on to love, even when it's hard. So I want to turn this question to you. When was the last time you felt courageous joy? Dance on the table in your red cowboy boots joy. When was the last time you took a risk just to feel alive? When did you last laugh so hard you cried? Or cry so hard you laughed? For me, it was playing Trivial Pursuit, the edition from 1987, where I don't know any of the answers, and I laughed so hard I cried. Whether or not you could conjure a memory, that spark of joy, that's still within you. It's that part of you that longs, that reaches, that builds. And when we see that in others, especially the young people in our congregations, in our communities, we got to think about how we will respond to joy. Let's not just cheer them on, those people feeling joy. Let's invest. Let's share power. Let's tell their stories with honesty and care. Not just sentimentally, but structurally. Let us let their joy stretch us, challenge us, and invite us into new ways of being. That's how we honor the joy that we've inherited and the joy we are still called to nurture. Unitarian Universalist youth have always been prophets of possibility. Sometimes too early, sometimes too loud, sometimes too weird for the institutions around them. And thank God for that. They teach us that worship can happen in a circle of beanbags, that covenant can be woven with bracelets and shared playlists, because in their joy, their songs, their chalk art, their late night deep questions, and their stubborn hope, we can hear the future humming. So next time you sing "We Would Be One," may we remember where it came from, not just from the pen of a young minister, but from the vision of young people dreaming the world into something better. May we honor that vision, not just with our voices, but with our lives, because joy is not frivolous. Joy is fuel. Joy is prophetic. And joy is ours to share. May it be so, and amen. Would you please stand as you are willing and able for our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home. This one is a favorite of youth these days. Every teenage group I've worked with is always picking this one and singing really loud.
Lonely, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor a port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel. casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Breathe the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Friends, take joy with you. Try not to resist it when you find it bubbling up in you, even if it's telling you to stand on the table and dance. This history of youth is yours. It is ours. These are our children, our adults. We get to incorporate their joy and bring it with us. We have a responsibility to share that joy wherever we go, even and maybe especially when it feels really hard to reach. I'd like to share these words to extinguish our flaming chalice. These are words by Reverend Wayne Arneson, who was a UU teenager and has been an ally to UU teenagers his whole life. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. You are not alone.
Thank you, Jacob. We'd like to give special thanks to our participants in this morning's service, to our guest speaker, Phoebe. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to Peter, who served as our usher. And thank you to our tech team of Dawn and Sarah. And to our music director, Jacob. Our upcoming events include tomorrow at 5:30 on Zoom, the Service and Music Committee will be meeting. On Tuesday at 7:15 on Zoom, the Social Action and Environmental Committee will be meeting. There will be a connection circle this coming Wednesday from 2:30 to 4 on Zoom. And it will be about a Whole Heart Oasis Zoom call sampler. AA meetings meet on Mondays at 7 and Tuesdays at 8 o'clock in the Parish Hall. Next Sunday's service will be a Patriots' Day service at the Unitarian Church of Sharon. The main entrance is off the parking lot on the right side of the church. They try to leave those parking spots available for folks who need them. There's an elevator from the main level up to the sanctuary and down to the vestry for coffee hour. There are no stairs to enter the church and all restrooms are accessible. This will be a cluster service in person and on their Zoom. There will be no service here at All Souls next Sunday. Please note that the floor repair here will begin this coming Saturday the 19th and continue into the next week. At the Canton New Church, there are weekly small groups open to the wide community on Thursday afternoons. Check the handout or their website for more information. Our remote participants are invited to stay online for a virtual social hour, and folks in the building, should I turn around or? Yes, I can, yes.